Good morning, everyone. Oh, it kind of feels like in primary school with people waving to me. Good morning, Mr. Wolf. Welcome back to day 3, everybody. How are we all feeling? There you go. That's pretty good for a day 3 morning. Everybody stop by the coffee cart? Oh, well, you'll get there after this. So, welcome back to another morning of GCAP. It is day 3. It is our final day. I'm very happy to have you all here again. You are going to have to bear with me through one more housekeeping, so keep that in mind. Before I begin, I would like to once more acknowledge that I am on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. It always was and always will be Aboriginal land, and I acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded, and I extend my welcome to any First Nation people joining us today. If you somehow weren't here for the first 2 days, firstly, congrats on getting through registration so fast and then getting down here. But I am Sav Wolf. I am Manager of Events, Content, Diversity, Equality and Inclusion for IGEA. I am also the Events Manager and Content Curator for GCAP 2022. I can't believe it's the final day. For me, this has been a consistent 6 months and then 3 months of really, really intensity. So it does feel more like a, falling down at, the end of your marathon. But thank you all so much for attending. Like I said, for me, GCAP kind of starts in February and ends in December once I've finished wrapping things up. So each year is kind of like my version of watching your kids go off to college. All grown up and more amazing than you could possibly realize. If raising a kid was like that they aged up way too fast for your liking, were smarter than you and understood tech better, and required very meticulous budgeting, which I have heard from my mother is kind of like what raising me was like. So we only have one more day of very, very incredible and in-depth talks across a variety of different topics and tracks. So please, for today, make sure that you do wander by our sponsor booths. They do have some amazing content and a ton of really cool socks that I am wearing today. We also have our bespoke content rooms, and the local lounge and the free coffee cart is, of course, still open for the last day. I'd like to thank our sponsors, who GCAP wouldn't be possible without. So a big thank you to Amazon Web Services, Big Ant Studios, Blowfish, Cam Rogers Legal, Creative Victoria, EA Games, Epic Games, Games Loft, Hipster Whale, Keywords Studio, LDB, League of Geeks, Nintendo, Playside Studios, Procreate, Screen New South Wales, Screen Queensland, Screen West, Sledgehammer, South Australia Film Corporation, Space Draft, Vic Screen, as well as our industry partner Screen Australia. Thank you for your generous support and for letting us bring you GCAP 2022. And I'll now proceed to go through the last time you'll have to hear this from me this year, which is housekeeping. In an emergency, please notify an IGEA team member immediately, be that medical, fire, or others, and we will escalate. In the event of an emergency, 1 of 2 alarms will sound. If it is a beep like your alarm clock, that's an alert, so please remain calm and await further instructions from MCAG. If it is a whoop whoop like a juggler, which everybody has been doing at me, now I'm coming to regret it, that is the sign to evacuate immediately. MCAG wardens will direct you to the safest evacuation point and let you know when it is safe to return. If an IGEA team member is not available immediately, please contact one of our many volunteers who you'll spot in the blue GCAP t-shirts. We'll also be seeing each other for the first time in a long time, though we might be a little old hat at it now, so let's cover off our expected behaviour. As there is a new world of navigating masks and social distancing at conferences, we have provided you with all masks and sanitizers free of charge, and you can replace them if needed at the Rego desk. IGEA strongly recommends the use of masks when you cannot socially distance. As a common courtesy to all other attendees, when you go up to them today and check in with them, be like, hey there, would you be more comfortable if I wore a mask right now? We all want to keep each other safe, so if you would all feel sick over the course of the event and then can therefore no longer attend, please contact the IGEA team to organise a refund to ensure that you won't be missing out. Please be considerate of your fellow attendees, and let's work to be as safe as we possibly can this Melbourne International Games Week, as I'm sure we'd all like to get to Sunday without getting sick. When you signed up via Eventbrite, you agreed to our privacy policy and code of conduct. You might have noticed already by now, but you do have that code of conduct on the back of your pass, though I've shoved some business cards in mine. But there is a QR code on there as well to take you to the full code of conduct on our website, should you need to go read it. I'll save you from reading it now and just cover off a little bit about our important points, because it is, of course, a requirement of entry that you abide by our code of conduct. As GCAP is a B2B business conference, which is a business-to-business developers conference, we're expecting you to act as if you're at work in a business. If you notice the term unacceptable behaviour on the back of your pass, there's a couple of things that means, but in case you want me to go into it, unacceptable behaviour includes physical, written, verbal, or other abuse, including intimidations, threat, annoyance, or stalking. Any boisterous, lewd, or offensive behaviour or language, continued disturbance and disruption in person and in digital spaces, the use of physical force, any behaviours which create apprehension in another person, possession of any item that can be used as a weapon, failure to obey any rules or regulations of any venues, including our digital spaces, or sending sexually explicit messages or image via direct messages. All of these will be taken extremely seriously, be they against other attendees, organisers, speakers, or moderators. It will result in immediate action that the IGEA team deem appropriate, including expulsion from the conference without warning or refund. If you have to question whether or not something is unacceptable behaviour, probably don't do it, just to be on the safe side. For all code of conduct violations, myself and Raylene Knowles, who you would have seen floating around by this point, are the main points of contact. If you witness any unacceptable behaviour, a dangerous situation, or a person in distress, you can either tell Raylene or myself via our numbers on the website, contact a volunteer to come grab us, or if we are within eyesight, come get us directly. Whatever method you are most comfortable with, we'll be along to address it ASAP for you. Please know that anything conveyed to us will be treated in the strictest of confidence, and we are here for support and guidance as you require, if you require. Your safety and comfort within our event is our top priority, and we will work to make sure we can resolve the issue in a timely manner for you. If you do have any questions, Raylene, myself, and the rest of the IGEA team will be floating around during the conference, so please feel free to get in contact with us if you need us for any reason at all. We are always happy to talk with you. Thank you again, and I am thrilled to welcome our next keynote up. Alayna Cole used to be driven by her ambition until she realised it was doing more harm than good, for her and for the people around her. Since then, Alayna has been trying to shift her focus away from achieving and producing towards goals that are more in line with her values, like balance, collaboration, mindfulness, and personal growth. Join this author, producer, and diversity advocate as she shares her previous ambitions and how she has redefined success in her life. Please welcome Alayna to the stage.
Thank you, Sav. Thank you, everybody. You can tell that I have been a little bit sleepy and a little late getting in because that was the first time I heard the Juggalo joke. Love it. Cool. So I'm here today to talk to you about striving for something different. And this title kind of happened before the talk did in a lot of ways, because when Sav messaged me and said, hey, do you want to do a talk about your relationship with ambition? My first instinct was like, I don't think that would be a very fun talk, because I don't have a very nice, positive, non-toxic relationship with ambition. I think that might be a little dark for 8:30 in the morning. So I had to kind of sit down and think about what I wanted this talk to be about. And while it is going to be about ambition, mostly, it's also going to be about other things that fuel me, that I think fuel me in a healthier way than ambition has ever done. But to begin with, let me tell you a little bit about who I am. So my name's Alayna Cole. I am the Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Manager at Sledgehammer Games, which means that I am focused on looking at our content and also our people and making sure that we are being as inclusive as possible across all of those areas. I'm the founding director of Represent Me, which is a not-for-profit organisation focused on diversity in the games industry. I'm the author of a range of textbooks and also some fiction now, and some other things, some papers and various things like that. And prior to this, I also worked as a producer at Sledgehammer and other studios, and as a lecturer at university. I've done other things as well, as we all have. I've had an eclectic start to my career. I've taught in high schools. I've done, a range of things. But this is sort of my abbreviated resume. And I wouldn't have been able to achieve a lot of those things without ambition. I had ambition to kind of drive my career and keep ticking the next goal and keep kind of working my way up some sort of imaginary ladder. And so when that email from Sav came through saying, hey, would you like to talk about ambition? The first thing I had to think about was what ambition means to me and what ambition means at all. I know that, there was going to be a lot of people in the audience who have their own understanding of ambition. I think some people might have seen the theme of this conference and thought ambition is a great thing that drives them or that, is helping them to achieve things. And other people might have seen it and thought, God, what a weird theme for a conference. I hate ambition, and ambition is toxic and bad. Or somewhere kind of in the middle. And I think that kind of spread of opinions is exactly why it is such an interesting thing to talk about. Because I think that ambition, depending on how you define it, can drive you in a really positive way and can also drive you in a really negative way. And so speaking about that definition, one of the first things that I did when planning out this talk was I Googled ambition. And Merriam-Webster gave me this definition, that ambition is an ardent desire for rank, fame, and power, and a desire to achieve a particular end. And looking back on my career, these are the sorts of things that I really used to care about. I don't care about them as much as I did, but there is a point especially in industry like this, where you get your opportunities through who you know, where things like fame or recognition or influence are how you get your job. I wouldn't be in the role that I'm in now if I didn't have some sort of brand recognition on Twitter or from doing talks like this one. And so there was a point in my career where being known was actually vital for me to be able to get paid. Same with things like rank. I consider rank to be related to things like our degrees and our studies and the sorts of things that we achieve and have associated with us. And I don't need the degree that I have to do the job that I'm in right now, but I use the skills that I've learned through my studies every day. And so again, while I'm not actively trying to seek out a higher rank or a promotion or whatever at this point in my career, there was absolutely a time where that was not only what I was striving for, but also something I felt was necessary. And you can see that in the sorts of goals that I used to have. So some of the goals that I set for myself when I was, a younger human included achieving my doctorate before I turned 25. I did that. I graduated from my PhD at 24. I had a goal to speak at GDC. I've now done that twice, once via Zoom while I was sitting in my study, which I know counts, but kind of feels like it doesn't count. This is a very different vibe. It's a different thing. But I've ticked that off. I had a goal to register a not-for-profit, and I've done that. I wanted to publish a book since I was a teenager, and teenage me would be stoked to learn that I've done that a few times now. And once I started working in the games industry, I had a goal to work in AAA. And I'm doing that currently. And it's honestly the best job I've ever had. And it's not because it's AAA. It's the best job I've ever had because I'm working with some of the best people that I've ever worked with in my entire life. And I have, an incredible team above and below me. And I don't think that's what I was aiming for when I set the goal to work in AAA. It wasn't work with an amazing team. And so the thing I find the most rewarding as I kind of achieve some of these goals isn't what I expected to be the part that I cared about. I actually don't think I would care what I was making if I was making it with these people. And so that made me realize that the way I was setting my goals and the sorts of things I was prioritizing in my goal setting kind of wasn't what I should be focused on. I mean, don't get me wrong, I am incredibly proud of everything that I have achieved, everything that was on that list and more. But I've also got that problem where I will, finish my doctorate, a multiple-year endeavor, something that took so much out of me. And I finished that, and I had my graduation ceremony, and I thought, cool, I did it. Now what? And that's it. That's the reaction that I had to that, right? And I can't imagine what else I could have done there other than, I had a little low-key party. It was fun, but it didn't fulfill me. It didn't kind of create that sense of completion and satisfaction that I think part of me wanted it to, especially given it was a goal that I had been driving towards for so long. And so I've kind of had to go back to the drawing board and work out, what is it that actually creates fulfillment? Because for the longest time, I've been caring about myself. I've been caring about what it is that I'm striving for, the award, the accolade, the degree, the promotion, the whatever. And I've cared about how many plates I'm spinning. Have you ever done that thing where somebody asks you how you are and you say, "Oh, I'm so busy. I'm really tired. I'm so busy." And a little part of you is like, "Yeah, yes. I've got a lot of things going on. I'm spinning so many plates. I'm juggling so many things right now." And then you're just like, "Woohoo, yeah, I'm winning. Capitalism." And I was like that. I was so excited if I could be like, "Oh man, I'm so busy. There's so much going on right now." Because I almost felt like if my answer was that I was good, or, "Oh yeah, I slept really well last night, got 8 whole hours," that I wasn't trying hard enough. That I could have been giving more of myself to, I don't know, whatever it was that I should have been giving myself to. And it's such a weird instinct that I hadn't really thought through. Like I just said then, whatever it was that I was meant to, I don't really even know where I was meant to be putting that energy, but somewhere. If I held on to it and looked after myself, that was a waste. I needed to put the energy somewhere. And so I cared so much about just being busy and moving and doing and achieving things. And that comes at a cost. And the cost that came at was my relationships, my loved ones, my family, my friends, my partner, the people that I worked with. It came at the cost of enjoying the journey I was on because I was so focused on where I was going that I missed all the stuff along the way. And it came at the cost of the things that made me me. I didn't kind of pay enough attention to things like my home and my hobbies and spending time outside, staring at the sun and being like, "Woo, outside." Because I was too busy being inside and staring at a screen and trying to give all of myself to something that I didn't even fully understand. And in doing all of that, I thought I was the bee. I thought I was the little buzzing insect flitting from flower to flower, getting everything done, gathering all the pollen, doing all the stuff, connecting everything up. But really, all along, I've been the flower. I'm the thing that needs to be cultivated and grown and looked after, and that if I don't look after myself, then I become drained and I become wilted and I can't sustain myself. And so I had to start to think what a flower actually needs to grow. And if you think about it in the more literal sense, a plant needs things like water and sunlight. It can be helped by fertilizer. It needs the nutrients in the soil. It needs space. It needs time. No one ever looks at a plant and thinks, "Oh, it's taken so long to grow. What a failure." Plants are allowed to take their time to do the thing that they need to do. And in many, many ways, I needed to find that patience for myself. And so I realized that the sorts of things I needed to tend to be allowed to succeed was also time to reflect and to breathe and to relax. Wild. That I needed opportunities to learn and grow and take on new things, and not just things directly related to my career, but other things, life stuff. I needed time for my hobbies and my activities, and I needed time to put into my supportive relationships and to support the people in my life and let them support me. And other things, there's so much that we need as people to be fully fledged, functional human beings. And our work is such a small part of that. And I think that became something I really, spent some time on. And during that process, I started to focus less on my achievements, or what I used to consider to be my achievements, with every year that passed by. And the way you can best see that is by looking at these year-in reviews that I write. So every year I sit down around November, December, and I write out everything that happened in the last year, or at least the bits that I want to remember. And usually full of photos and really lovely things that I did, and travel and all of that stuff. Often we'll have things like conferences and talks. There will be like a photo of me doing this in my year in review this year, most likely. But if you look through my previous year in reviews, the first one I ever did was in 2015. And almost the entire thing is about my professional success. It's about my undergraduate degree. It's about the things that I published and the talks that I did. And then as you work your way closer and closer to now, you find that they become less and less about my career and more about the other aspects of my life. And around that 2017, 2018 stage, they even flip so that my personal successes ended up starting to be before my professional ones. And that wasn't a conscious choice or anything. This is just a little exercise I did for fun while I was making these slides. But it made me realize, like, oh, okay, somewhere along the line I started to figure this out, that maybe, adopting a dog last year was more interesting to me than I spoke on a panel for the UN. That's a thing I did. Woo. But in 2015, that would have been number one. That would have been like the first thing I said, and I would have gone on and on about it, and it would have been really annoying. I mentioned it to somebody this week that I did it, just kind of offhand, and they were like, sorry, you did what? And I'm like, oh, that thing. It's fine. And that used to be this weird, fake, humble thing that I did, where I was like, oh, don't talk about it, please talk about it. But now it's I did the thing because I thought it was important, and I wanted a certain group of people to hear about what it's like to be a woman in games, which is what that panel was about. But I didn't do it for me. I didn't do it to have people know that is a thing I did. And so it was last on my list last year. I wrote about buying an apartment, which is incredible, and what a gift that I've been able to do that. And then I was like, oh yeah, and that panel as well. I should remember that. I should put that down. And I think this is kind of the point, right? I have worked out that the things I value most and the order that I value them in has shifted. And as a result, I kind of just feel better and healthier and happier. Because it turns out my success is not my achievements. My success is my well-being. My success is living sustainably and being able to continue to do things. My success is my generosity and being able to take the incredible luck and privilege that I have been granted and share that with other people and help bring them into this industry or up in this industry and allow them to achieve what they want to achieve as well. My success is my growth, my ability to learn and spend time on myself and the things that I care about. And my success is love. It's loving other people, and it's allowing them to love me. And it's spending time with those people and cultivating and tending to those relationships so that they don't get pushed aside for the sake of everything else that I am trying to get done. So I'm going to try this again. Who am I? I'm not my resume. I am some sort of pagan witch forest creature. I am the mum of one dog whose name is Biscuit, who is pictured, who brings me endless joy and constant frustration, and that is just the way I like it. I have one remaining rat. Her name is Willow. She is in the retirement phase of her life. And I have a bunch of houseplants. I love every single arts and craft project I can get my hands on. And I'm slightly, just a little bit addicted to hot chips. It's a minor thing, it's fine. But if you know, really good hot chips places around here, hit me up. I've only been in Melbourne a few years and COVID was happening for most of it, so I don't necessarily, let me know. This is me. I'm not every role that I've had in this industry or other industries. I am this. And I think that realizing I am not my list of accolades and awards and achievements has been kind of revelatory for me. It's completely changed the way that I see the world. And so I set some new goals. I want to learn some new hobbies. I recently learned how to crochet. It was awesome. I made my own handbag. I use it all the time now. It's great. I want to learn some other things like leatherworking and silversmithing. I wanted to adopt a dog. I did that. I mostly don't regret it. I want to write a book for me this time, not a game industry book about games, because all I think about is games all the time, always, which feels like a really rude thing to say at a games conference. But like, I want to write a book about not games. How much do you just want to spend your weekend not thinking about games sometimes, you know? And so I'm writing a book currently, and it's coming out next year. I have a publisher for it, and it's going to be about my life and some weird things that I've done, and tarot cards and kitchen appliances and the history of hysteria as an illness and various other things. They tie together, sort of. I'm going to go on some more adventures. I'm going to go see more places. I'm going to dedicate time to doing that, not just traveling for work, but traveling for me. And then my fifth goal on this list is I want to make the games industry a more supportive and inclusive place for everyone. And that's not a goal about me anymore. That's not a goal about the degree I want to get or the job I want or the thing I want to do. That is a goal about everybody else. That is a goal about how I can help every person in this room and the people outside it who want to be part of this space and feel welcome to do so. And none of those goals are about rank or fame or power. And they're not about achieving a particular end. Those aren't SMART goals. You can't sit down at the end of the year and be like, did I achieve them? Oh, they're measurable. They are things that are going to be ongoing and kind of a dedicated commitment, except the adopting a dog bit, I did that, tick. Some of them are just going to be ongoing journeys, like making this place more inclusive is not something I'm ever going to say, yep, I did it. There are going to be steps that I take towards that, and some of the ones I've already taken I'm so proud of. But that's going to be an ongoing and lifelong journey if you'll have me. And the same is the case for a lot of that stuff, about learning new things and about going on adventures. I'm hopeful that I'm never going to finish those goals because I'm going to be able to continue doing that forever. And so maybe what I want isn't ambition. Maybe I want something else. I have an ardent desire for balance, support, and empowerment. And I have a desire to embark on a particular journey. So I'm going to talk a little bit about balance, support, and empowerment. When I think of balance, I think one of the first things I envision is this idea of work-life balance, which I kind of hate as a concept, because if you think about it, what it's telling you is that your life is made up of two things, work and life. And I don't know if that's quite true, and it's certainly not true for me. Work is one component of my much larger life. And then I also have friends and family and myself and my hobbies and my community support that I want to do and my spirituality and all of these elements. And if you think about it like work-life balance, it's almost like you're trying to figure out like, okay, how do I do work and the rest of it? And it just dismisses the rest of it into this weird category. And for me, work is part of my life. I love my work. And I feel like what I do outside of work feeds into my work. And then what I do at work feeds into the rest of my life in a really meaningful way. And so I don't really want to separate those things out. But that doesn't mean I don't want to find balance, because I think we do have a tendency sometimes to spend so much time in one area and then no time in other areas, and everything suffers for it. If you've ever owned a houseplant and that houseplant has started to die, and then you've Googled, how do I save dying houseplant? What have I done to my houseplant? Oh my God. The answer is usually either two things. You've underwatered your houseplant, so you need to give it more water, or you've overwatered your houseplant and you need to remove the water somehow. And it's up to you to roll the dice and figure it out. The takeaway from that is it doesn't matter if you are overwatering or underwatering something. If you're giving it not what it actually needs and deserves in your life, it's going to wilt. So the things you're giving extra attention to, more than you should be based on where your values lie, that's suffering just as much as the things that you are not giving enough time to. And so you need to kind of work out which values in your life you're overwatering and which values you're neglecting, and try to work out where that water should go. Which means you have to kind of think about it, which is a scary thing for me to bring up at 9 a.m. I'm really sorry. But if it helps, at least you're not doing a keynote at 9 a.m. But when was the last time you sat down and really thought about your values? There are so many different things that we need to juggle in our lives, and not in the I'm so busy, look at me spinning plates kind of way, but in a sustainable and lovely way. We need to be able to juggle things like our family and exercising so we stay healthy, and making enough money to pay our bills, and spending time by ourselves, but also spending time with other people. And all of this stuff can't exist simultaneously. And every single person in this room, the person beside you, the person in front of you, me, have totally different weights and, significance that we give to these different things. So some of them are really thirsty plants that need lots of water, like a maidenhair fern that if you look at it wrong will wilt and die. And some of them are succulents that you can kind of leave neglected for a really long time, and that's okay. But if you haven't sat down and thought about it, you kind of don't know where to spend your time. And so you end up falling into this trap where you just react to whatever's in front of you. If you have a friend who shows up at your doorstep and says, "Hi, I need your help," and you go, "Okay," and you give them your time and your energy because it's what's right in front of you. And it means you're not kind of making conscious choices about where you're spending your time and where you're spending that energy. So these slides and this recording will be available later, so that if you're not a 9 a.m. person, you can think about this if you would like to. But it's, I think, meaningful to spend time reflecting on where you spend your time and your energy, and thinking about what you can do to find some more balance in your life. And I think a lot of people know what the answer to that is. A lot of people will be sitting there thinking, "Oh yeah, no, I know, I spend too many hours at work and I should totally sort that out." And so then the question is, what's stopping you from making that change? What's stopping you from doing the thing that you know you need to do to be able to feel more happy and fulfilled in your life? Because you only get one of them, so you might as well be happy and fulfilled during it. And that is a really privileged position to come from, I know. There are lots of things that stop us from making change that are unavoidable and that we can't do anything about. But I've also found that in a lot of situations, you have more power than you think you do. And I think spending a moment to consider how you can make meaningful change in your own life and what changes you're capable and powerful enough to make can be really enlightening. So take a moment at some point today, if you can, or at some point after Games Week when you've had a nap. Both good options. Support. What is support? So I consider support to be a kind of collaborative effort. Support is something that you give and it's something you receive, and both are necessary. And the reason I have the archway up there is because I think it's a really good analogy for what support can be. An archway can't stand unless both halves are leaning against each other. So unless you have someone to lean on, and someone to lean on you, and the community is all leaning on itself, it all falls apart. So support is really important to keep everyone standing. I think sometimes we think about help and support as something that some people need and some people don't need. There are people who need help, and there's people who don't. And I don't need help, I'm real strong, I'm tough, I don't need help, is a really common thing, especially in Australia, where we're all really stoic and we're like, oh no, don't help me, I'm not going to ask for help, that makes me weak. But what I've realised is I'm all of those things. I sometimes can quite literally lift the weights above my head, and other days I walk with a cane because I have fibromyalgia. And sometimes, like this morning when I woke up, it gives me pins and needles or pain throughout an entire part of my body, and I can't support my own weight. So thankfully, I am currently standing on this stage without help, but I do have my little trusty fold-up cane in my bag in case after the adrenaline crash of this talk, I can't stand on my own anymore. But I'm not stronger or weaker because of that. I just sometimes need more help. That's okay. I'm not a person who does or does not need help. I'm a person who needs help more on some days than others. I'm also not just happy or sad. I'm often excited and energetic and enthused, and then other days I'm angry, upset. I have mental illness. Maybe I am in a depression slump. Those things coexist. Sometimes I stand behind a lectern and I talk and I sound like I know what I'm doing. And then some days, I am a tiny child who cannot articulate her own emotions to the people in her life. Some days, I am a perfectly blooming, totally balanced, getting just the right amount of water kind of flower. And sometimes I'm the wilting plant that's missing something and needs to kind of reset, recalibrate, and figure out what that is. And here's the secret. That's literally all of us. We all need help sometimes. And I think it's important to remember that you're not weaker for asking for it, and you're certainly not weaker for giving it. And it's about trying to figure out how you support the people around you. And it's incredibly challenging to do that if you're so busy being so ambitious that you are just driving for some sort of goal all the time. I think supporting each other is something worth slowing down for. And so we're back with the it's too early in the morning rhetorical questions. Do you ask for help when you need it? How willingly do you help others? And what do you need in return? And I think that last question comes with this baggage of you should just help people, you should never need anything in return. And I don't agree with that to a point as well. I think you're allowed to have expectations that you are not always the one helping without ever being helped back, because if that happens, then the archway topples over. And you are allowed to have boundaries, and you're allowed to look after yourself, and you're allowed to know what that looks like. But I think the main thing is knowing that your own ambition should never be at the cost of other people, and that it is incredibly important to stand beside the people in this room, in this industry, in this world, and work your way towards your goals together rather than in spite of them. Empowerment. What is empowerment? Empowerment is an interesting word because it contains the word power. And I think in a lot of ways there are similarities between being powerful and being empowered. I even talked about being powerful earlier in a positive way, and I think it can be made a really positive energy. But I also think that there is a tendency to think of power as the ability to get what you want, to control other people, and to avoid being challenged. I think there are a lot of people who are very ambitious and want to seek power because every time somebody questions them or challenges them or gives them feedback that they don't agree with, it makes them uncomfortable. And so the easier thing is to just become more powerful, so no one's allowed to do that anymore. And that's not exactly healthy. And it's not how you become the best version of yourself either. And so I'm far more interested in being empowered. I want to have the confidence and capacity to stand up for what is right. I want to ensure that my needs are met, and I want to make meaningful change. But none of that, again, is at the cost of others. I want to have more confidence than the people around me that are still struggling to find their empowerment, so I can stand up on their behalf if I need to and if they want me to. I want to make sure that in the process, my needs are not completely neglected, but I don't want my needs and my wants and my ambitions to come before those of everybody else. And I want the change that I make in the world to be meaningful so that I can make a difference that isn't just the difference I want to see, but the difference that other people are also asking for and striving for. And the only way I can do that is by listening to the feedback and the thoughts of the people around me, not by avoiding being challenged. And I think we do have a tendency to avoid difficult conversations. I think sometimes people giving you feedback, especially constructive feedback, can come across like it is really challenging and rough. And I mean, I did a thesis. I spent years sitting there and listening to people criticize my work. And at the beginning of that process, my work was me. And so if you told me my work was bad, I was bad. And that was so hard. But you need to be able to find ways to have difficult conversations if you want to grow and improve as a person. And I think difficult conversations are also the opposite. It's the way that you communicate to the people around you. It's the way you give them feedback. I think we all have a tendency to avoid telling people, hey, that thing you said actually hurt my feelings. Or that thing you said isn't actually correct, and maybe we can talk about that. Or, hey, I've seen this way that you behave in, work or this personal circle, and I just wanted to talk to you about that behavior because I don't think it's as productive as alternatives might be. I think we have a habit of kind of taking the difficult thing and being like, it'll sort itself out. I don't need to deal with that. I don't need to chime in there. And that is not how we become more empowered, and it's not how we empower others. What are the ways that you elevate other people? When we come to a conference like this, I think a lot of people, the first thing that you're thinking about is what you're going to go and learn, what talks you want to go to because it's going to be relevant to you and your life and your career. But I also challenge you to think about what sorts of things you could be doing in a space like this to elevate and help the people around you. Because if everyone in the room is thinking about that, you'll get elevated too, by more than just yourself, because everyone around you will be thinking about ways to help you as well. And so the power of that is far stronger than if you're just looking after yourself. And if you do have the opportunity to lead others, I'd like you to think about whether you are leading through compassion or fear. I have had people in my life who have led me through both of these methods. One is far nicer than the other. Both get the job done. But I have a lot more respect for the people who have led through compassion and authenticity and vulnerability, and I've learned far more from those people than the people who have led through fear and because I said so, and I'm shouting it and therefore it's correct. And I think that is a really important thing for us to think about as well. If you don't know the answer to something, yelling the incorrect thing louder does not necessarily make it right. And it is completely okay for you to just say, I don't know. And I think that's a lesson a lot of people could benefit from too. So I want to come back here. We've just talked about balance, support, and empowerment. And I kind of labored over this. Like, I had this original definition and I thought, yeah, I'm going to take out those 3 words and replace them with 3 other words. Then I had to figure out what the 3 words were. This is where we landed. I think those could be replaced by a whole bunch of other things. But I think that these are 3 areas that I'm trying far more in my life now to focus on. I'm not done. I'm not perfect at them. I definitely have more work to do. But I thought I'd share them with you because I thought maybe it's something you might be interested in working with and focusing on a little more as well. And then I also just wanted to remind you to remember that the journey is great. The journey is wonderful. Don't be so focused and fixated on the end destination that you don't enjoy the way that you get there. And if I'm going to be driven by this new definition, this question mark definition that isn't ambition, the next question that I have is, if I'm not being fueled by ambition anymore, if that's not what I'm burning to get through things, can I still do something ambitious? Can I still do something that we haven't seen before and innovative and bold and, meaningful? And I think yes. Because I think that it can be far easier to do things like be self-interested than to be generous. And I think it's far easier to exclude other people than include them in the conversation. I think it's far easier to go straight to the sarcasm than to be wholesome and look after people and love them, especially for Australians. I think it's easier to be judgmental than it is to be curious, to ask questions and to wonder what someone's thinking before you jump straight to being like, nah, they're obviously thinking this. I think it's easier to be arrogant and think you know all the answers than it is to be supportive and create space for other people to share what they have to say. And I think it's easier to be cliquey and have this kind of idea that, this is the in crowd and it's the way it's always been, than it is to open the doors and be accepting to new people and new ways of doing things and new ways of thinking. And so if all of that is easier, then I think it's incredibly ambitious to be generous, to be inclusive, to be wholesome, to be curious, to be supportive, and to be accepting. So that's my new ambition. Thank you.
Thank you very much too. That was Alayna Cole. I'd like to just ask for another round of applause for her right here. It was actually a huge consideration when deciding on this year's theme that we look to what ambition can do for people and also how ambition can, necessarily negatively affect the people around us, because we realize it is used across a lot of different ways. So I'm really glad that we're having these conversations. We are about to head out and go into morning tea. So if you're interested in that, please feel free to head out to that. If you would like to chat to Alayna after this as well, maybe grab her here just because she is heading out after this as well. So now's your chance. Thank you very much.